Hi guys! Welcome ulit sa aking channel. Good evening. Gaklungan nun. Assalamualaikum and magandang gabi sa lahat. Guys, tuloy ko po ang His Runaway Wife, Chapter 7. I met Aaron before Damian in school. Aaron was a year younger than me, but he was a year ahead in school. We got along right from the start and we grew close over the years in school. At the beginning of our senior year, he introduced me to Damian in a party he hosted in his parents' house. I don't really remember the occasion of the party. Guess it didn't matter. I remember looking everywhere for Aaron, who had disappeared. I was never a party girl, so Aaron was my safe haven in every party. He was the cool kid. Everyone wanted to be around him. I remember spotting him out in the backyard across the pool. I walked my way around people until I reached him. He was talking with a man who had a beer in his hand. I had not seen Damian before, so I found myself checking him out. I admired his tallness, his broad shoulder, and I liked the fact that he was the only one in the party wearing a suit. "Hey, there you are," Aaron said when he saw me. "Hey," I said, forcing my smile to look away from the handsome guy standing next to him. "I lost you." Aaron grinned. "Well, you found me. This is my brother Damian." He turned to look at him. "This is Rebecca." Damian turned to look at me. "Well, finally get to meet my little brother, best friend." He extended his hand out. "It is a pleasure, Rebecca." I could not look away from his brown eyes. I think I smiled. I meant to smile as I shook his hand. "Thanks." His hand was firm and I liked the touch of his warm skin against mine. "Hey, Aaron." Aaron looked behind me to his buddies who were calling him. "Hey, coming," he said as he walked towards them. "Would you like something to drink?" Damian asked me. I shook my head. "No, thank you. I have an exam tomorrow. I shall not even be here." He half smiled. "Me too. Are you majoring in business? Business like my brother?" "Accounting, actually." "What about you?" "I'm actually in my last year of medical school." I raised my eyebrows. "Wow," he chuckled. "What? You don't look that old." "I graduated college when I was 20, he shrugged. "I'm sort of a nerd." I smiled at him. "Well, you don't look like a nerd either." In my head, I was doing the math. If he was on his fourth year of medical school and he graduated college when he was 20 years old, then he was about 24. I was 21. He did look more mature than most of the people that were in the party, and it didn't go unnoticed that all the girls were checking him out whenever they could. Damian looked at me for a moment. "I can't believe we've never met before. Aaron had you well hidden." I smiled. "Well, now we know each other." "Yes, we do." Damian grinned. "I have a feeling we're gonna see each other more often, Rebecca." I stared at Damian back as he slept. Who would have thought I was gonna marry that man I met at Aaron's party? It was so easy to fall for Damian. He was so caring, so attentive, always sending me texts for giving me flowers. I fell in love with him like an idiot. Married him a year after meeting him and then leaving him a year later. And now here we are, 3 years later. Technically, we have been married for 4 years, though counting the last 3 years felt like cheating. Damian's soft snoring filled the room as I got out of bed slowly. I pulled the pants up as I walked out of the room as quietly as I could. "I'm sorry," Alexa said as soon as she opened the door when I knocked. I rolled my eyes at her. "What exactly are you sorry for?" I asked as I reached for my purse and searched for my toothbrush, calling the man, locking me out of the room last night. Everything, she signed. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I sort of did call him so I could go visit UCLA. I glanced at her from the mirror as I brushed my teeth. She was sitting on the bed with her back against the wall, staring at the TV. Her hair was frizzy, probably from sleep. She didn't have any makeup, so she looked younger than she was. She rested her cast hand on her lap. I dried my hands and face, then signed as I sat down in front of her. You had no right calling him, Alexa. Things between Damian and I are complicated. That was the understatement of the century. I know, I'm sorry, she said, biting her lip. I looked at her for a moment, then took a deep breath. Now, about UCLA. She looked up at me. I smiled, playing on her lips. Yes, I realize that I have no right stopping you from going to the school that you want to go. I rolled my eyes. And I know you're gonna leave anyway, so I'd rather you choose UCLA. She smiled. There's a tour for Saturday. You have to come with me. I smiled. It'd be nice if you go to campus again. I heard someone clear their throats behind me, and I turned around and saw Damian standing at the doorway. He was wearing basketball shorts with a white t-shirt. The sleeves hugged his muscular arms in the way I've always loved to admire. His blonde hair was messy from his sleep. Hey, he said quietly. I stood up and walked to him. Good morning. He glanced at Alexa and then looked back at me. Lowering his head, I thought you left. I half smiled. I don't have a car, remember? I joked, but a dark shadow crossed his handsome face. I'm just kidding, I said, reaching out to touch his arm, but I stopped midair and dropped my hand. He looked at me. I'm gonna go get dressed and then we can go get the car. Maybe have breakfast first. I frowned. Aren't you going to work? I think I'm going to take the next few days off. I shook my head. Damian, please don't do that. I mean, you don't have to. I want to, Rebecca. He lowered his voice. I feel like you're gonna disappear if I let you out of my sight. I gulped as I helped his intense gaze. I'm sorry, I whispered. He stared at me for a moment. I'll go change, he finally said, and then turned around and walked back to his room. You traumatized the poor boy. I turned around and glared at Alexa. You know we're in this situation because of you, so I will not be talking messy. Alexa with her smart comments. She frowned. Why did you tell me you guys were divorced? I reached down for my suitcase and began to look through the clothes. I really needed to do the laundry because we practically were. No, you were not. You ran away. She leaned in closer and whispered, I mean, Rebecca, what about Julian? I hissed. I'm gonna go change. I walked into the bathroom and changed into jeans with a blouse, my hands shaking. You should change, I told Alexa. I'm not going, she said, pulling the blanket up to her chin. I'm not interested in being a third wheel. Thank you very much. So you're just gonna stay in bed all day? Yeah, you know, Damiana has every possible channel on the TV plus Netflix and Wi-Fi, right? I gave her that look. You better stay out of trouble, Alexa. Yes, ma'am. I rolled my eyes at her. And do the laundry. The room is right across the hall. Yes, boss. I could not help but smile. Thanks. Before I walked out of the room, I stopped and turned around. And Alexa. She looked at me. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. I signed in relief. Okay, I walked out of the room and closed the door behind me, then headed to Damian's room. The door was open and I pushed it open slowly. Damian was standing in front of the full-size mirror he had In the corner, he had changed into black dress pants with a white button-down shirt tucked in. He was tying his black tie as he turned around to look at me. Alexa wants to stay here if that's okay with you. You don't have to ask me, Rebecca, he said as he straightened his tie. As I watched him, I remember when I used to tie his tie back before I left. It was not that he didn't know how to tie them. He would always joke about how he liked it better when I tied them for him. I nodded once. Okay, I'll be in the living room. I'm ready, he said as he clasped his silver watch on his right wrist and reached for his jacket. You make me feel so underdressed in jeans, I teased as we walked out of the house. Well, you make those jeans look good. I blushed as I turned around to look at him. He looked up and grinned as he unlocked the car. Oh God, he was checking me out. I don't know why I felt embarrassed. I mean, he was my husband, for God's sake. I was acting like a teenager. Thanks, I said when he opened the car door for me. Please stop treating me like a stranger, the man said as he started the car. You're starting to hurt my feelings. For saying thank you, I teased. He chuckled as he shook his head but didn't say anything. Sorry, I looked out the window. It's just weird being around you again. There was a moment of silence as he drove. I looked out the window and watched everything we passed by, a million things going through my head. Where you really gonna live after seeing Aaron? He asked after a moment. You were going to leave without calling me? I could tell he was hurt by the tone of his voice, and that made me feel even worse than I already felt. I was thinking about going to your clinic. Aaron gave me a card and made me promise I would go see you, but I signed. I probably would have left, yes, not because I hate you, but because I'm a coward. The biggest coward on earth. Well, excuse mo na. Wait lang. Chapter 8. I looked down at my phone for the third time since Damian and I sat down. Caller ID Julian. God, it was like Alexa invoked him. Is everything okay? I looked up at Damian and wondered for a brief second thought about how he would react if I told him that I have been dating a guy for the past 3 months. The reaction probably would not be good. No, Damian shall not find out about Julian. Sorry, just work. I frowned. I forgot I needed to extend my days off. I realized. Today was my last day of saan ako? Sorry. Today was my last day off from the little vacation, so I made a mental note to call today. I was lucky I rarely miss work, so I had a lot of sick hours accumulated, enough to get me the next few days off and still have more left. Damian reached for his cup of coffee. Where do you work? In a bank, I posed. I'm a manager. He raised his eyebrow. And how is it? Do you like it? I do. Actually, I like the schedule and I have some pretty decent coworkers, I said as I used the fork to cut a piece of pancake and put it in my mouth. So you've been in Nevada all this time? I nodded. Yes. You know, it was not until you left that I realized I didn't know where your mom lived. I looked at him. Well, we never visited her. She always came here, remember? We should have, Damian said slowly. I know part of the reason we never did it because I didn't have time. I never held it against you, Damian. I said sympathetically. I really didn't. I married a medical student who had a career waiting for him in his father's clinic. I knew what I was getting into and I respected what Damian did too much to resent him for it. Did I like it? No, but I didn't blame Damian. I didn't know where to look for you. He continued thoughtfully as if he was looking into the past. I realized I didn't know much about you. I'm sorry, I said quietly. He chuckled dryly. Don't apologize. I was not a good husband to you. I guess I got what I deserved. Don't say that, I said, placing my hand on top of his. What I did to you, disappearing like that. I shook my head as I took my hand off of his and placed it on my lap. It's unforgivable. It was not the right way to handle the situation. I'm so sorry. Yeah, well, I think I'm to blame too, Damian said after a moment. I looked down at my food, which suddenly I didn't look as appetizing as it did a few minutes ago. Silence took over our table and we sat there and finished our breakfast with the chatter of people talking around us like two strangers. The toe pound was open when we got there, and as we walked in, I began to panic. I didn't know how much it was going to be. I had been spending money all weekend and I could only hope that I had enough in my credit card. The last thing I needed was Damian thinking I'm not financially stable. I had been doing pretty good for myself, way better than I was 2 years ago. Damian and I sat in the silence as we waited for the car to be released. I played with the car case as we waited, and Damian went over his phone. Your car is ready. The man behind the computer finally called in a boring voice. Damian and I stood up and walked to the counter while the man clicked something on the computer. It's 46811. Sorry. I signed silently in relief as I reached for my wallet. I had enough, thank God. But before I could take out my card, Damian took out his wallet and handed the man his card. Damian, what are you doing? I hissed as the man processed the payment. Taking care of my wife, he said casually as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I pursed my lips and didn't say anything while the man handed Damian his card back with a receipt. Have a nice day, he said, sounding like a robot as Damian and I headed outside. Thanks. Stop, Damian interrupted me. Damian, that was my expense. I can afford it. He stopped and turned to look at me. Would you just let me take care of you for a second? There was an anger in his voice, and I didn't say anything, not wanting to start a fight outside the tow pound. There were not people around us. Cars were passing down the street. I could see my car parked a few spots next to Damian's. It was dusty, but I was glad to see it. I'm sorry, Damian said as he ran a hand through his hair. I didn't mean to yell. I've been feeling useless for the past 3 years. Not knowing where you are, not knowing if you were okay, if you needed anything, Rebecca. He took a step forward and placed his hands on my shoulder. I'm your husband and it's my job to take care of you. I want to take care of you. I nodded as I looked into his brown eyes. Okay, we stared at each other for a moment and I noticed just how tired he really looked. He did sleep last night, so I wondered if it was his job that was stressing him or if maybe it was me. The man was always been a very handsome man. From his strong jaw to his warm brown eyes and perfect lips, his Adam's apple made him look even more manly and intimidating. His eyes wandered down to my cheeks, down my lips. I cleared my throat. We should go. He nodded right, he said as he took his phone out and glanced at it. I noticed he had a few notifications. Damian, if you need to go to work, please go. I feel guilty thinking of sick children not being treated because of me. He half smiled. They're not always sick. Most of the time they're just checkups. Still, I smiled. I promise I'm not going anywhere. He glanced at my car, hesitating. Here, give me your phone, I said, extending my hand, and he placed it on my palm. I'll give you my number and you can call me to check in whenever you want, I said as I saved my number on his phone, then gave it back to him. I don't know, Rebecca. I don't have much time with you. I don't want to waste it. I smiled at him. I know how important your job is to you. Just go and do what you have to do. I'll be fine. He nodded slowly. Okay. You remember how to get back to the house? Yes. He hesitated for a moment. If you need anything, I'll manage, I reassured him. Okay, he repeated, nodding as if trying to convince himself that this is a good idea. You traumatized the poor guy. Alexa words repeated in my head over and over. Maybe not traumatized, but the man didn't trust me anymore and it was my fault. I didn't blame him. The man had always been a confident man and I had cracked a hole in his confidence. Without thinking, I put my arms around his waist and buried my face in his chest. I could tell I caught him by surprise, but he put his arms around me and held me tightly. I'm not running away, I promise, I whispered after a moment. Alexa would not let me out anyway until we go to her tour. I laughed as I pulled away. Damian smiled, showing me his straight white teeth. Okay, guess I'll see you later then. You will, I promise. He hugged me one more time and then kissed my cheek before heading to his car. I forced my legs to do the same. I watched him drive off. I sat on the driver's seat for a moment, feeling the tingling of his lips against my cheek. I shook my head with a smile. I felt like a teenager with a crush on the popular guy. I was a married woman and that man was my husband. We have done way more intimate things than a kiss on the cheek, yet that embrace and that kiss felt special. Maybe because I miss him so more than I allowed myself to admit. It was easier to pretend I was not married back in Nevada. It got easier as the days passed. I knew that if I never saw Damian again, I would be back in square one. And here I was. I didn't know what we were doing. Could I move back to California? I loved my job and I had worked so hard to buy the house. If I came back, it would be like taking 3 steps back in my life. Yes, I had missed Damian more than I allowed myself to admit, but I didn't think I could come back. Yet I didn't know if I could just walk away again. I had no idea what I was going to do. So guys, no dun sa nag ano ganin napagod ako. Guys, dun sa nag-request nito, kung hindi ako makapag-upload, pero maiksi lang naman itong binigay mo sa akin story. And please subscribe po dun sa iba, tsaka thank you sa patuloy na pagsasend sa akin ng mga titles ng novels. Guys, thank you. Please subscribe, share, comment, or whatsoever. And nakalink na rin po ang Facebook page ko, Messenger. So, kayo na pong bala. Thank you and good night.